expect it to happen to you. You never expect your life to change this way, where all the normality and peace so quickly goes away.
You never expect it to happen to you. The crowds pushing from left to right. As screaming surrounds us, with no end in sight.
We struggle to have meaning in this life, which we know. We try, but yet we wonder where we all should go. I come now from those foreign places, unknown to those with hidden faces, bedecked and different for them to leer, as one unknown, something to fear. So where is my daughter?
Where has she gone? Why can't I find her?
What's going on?
You never expect it to happen to you. The way I feel, I can't explain this gratitude inside for all the days and all the nights you spent right by my side. And now I've lost you in this place, with chaos all around. I'll search and search through every face. I promise you will be found.
You never expect it to happen to you. I have walked and prayed for an hour, and heard the wind scream upon the tower, under the arches of the bridge, and scream in the elm above the flooded stream. I was there. It happened to me. It could so easily have been a family tragedy. An empty seat, left by giving a treat, only made worse by failing to meet.
my role is as a security advisor to different sections of the military to advise and educate them on how to keep themselves safe from a security aspect, particularly with regard to terrorist attacks or terrorist activity around where they work and live. For general safety, one of the biggest aspects, we find that people are complacent. It's the perception that they think it's not going to happen to them or where they live. We need to try and instill in people's minds that a terrorist attack can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere. We would give advice, government-based advice mainly, or advice that was particular to the local area that they work, operate, or live in. Government advice, particularly with the policy of run, hide and tell, to keep themselves safe if they're involved with or in the vicinity of a terrorist attack. First, be aware of your surroundings. Know where your escape routes are. Think about if you were trying to escape from a fire in a building, but with the added notion that potentially escaping outside may not be the best option. If they are aware of the layout of the building, corridors, staircases, where offices and complexes are, they would have some understanding of where they could escape to if a terrorist got into the building to carry out a shooting attack, for example. Walking around outdoors, if subjected to a terrorist attack, one piece of advice I always give is if you're in a crowded street when you think the terrorist attacks have recently been carried out in vehicles that mount the pavement and knock people over, our advice would be to try and walk facing the traffic. So if somebody mounts the pavement in a vehicle, you perhaps have some chance of getting out of the way.
Happened to be in Barcelona at the time of the terrorist attacks in 2017, yeah. We'd got there in the morning, got on a coach for an hour and a half from the hotel, then got coffee somewhere, and then we went to this museum. It was then after this museum that we, after having a bit of time to wander around, we went to have lunch at this pizza restaurant, and yeah.
I was there on holiday with my brother. Well, it was my little brother, my sister, my dad and my stepmom. And we were kind of... Okay, so it happened in this area called Les Ramblas, which is this big, stretch of shops, kind of like market stalls, that sort of thing. Anyway, we were having dinner, or maybe we just finished eating dinner. Either way, we were in this pizza restaurant, which was a few streets away and it was quite high up. I would say I'm more of an outsider, because obviously I wasn't on the strip as it happened, but I just remember everyone in the restaurant kind of just jumped up and ran to the windows to see what was going on.
I think the first thing we kind of heard, was a few screams, or not even screams, noise. A little bit of uproar. But we were in this busy restaurant anyway, so I kind of doubted myself whether I'd heard anything or not. Kind of oh, you're in a city, whatever. It's quite a busy time, but yeah, it didn't click to me that something was going on. It wasn't until the people that were stood by the window started paying attention to what was going on outside the windows that we kind of were oh, what's going on? Because we were sat away from the windows, slightly further back into the restaurant. So yeah, it wasn't until they started standing up and then they started paying attention to what was going on, then more people were kind of oh, what's going on? That kind of thing.
We didn't really know what was going on at first. We kind of just saw, and then we didn't really see everything, but we kind of saw people running and we heard screaming and things like that. So to be honest, my first thought was that I'm quite relieved that we're up here and not down there, because it couldn't have been more than an hour before we were down there. So yeah, kind of a bit of a relief, because I thought we were safer up here, but we didn't really know what it was that was happening at the time. And when the restaurant staff started saying that we had to stay inside and that sort of thing, we started, I think, panicking a bit more. I think we started realising that it wasn't just like someone had just driven off onto the pavement into the crowd. It was more like, oh shoot, there's actually something going on here, and it all kind of turned to panic. I think we were all worried, like, what if it's not just a van? What if there's more of them? What if they have guns? Like, what if there's going to be a bomb? Because then we all started hearing what it actually was, and there was so much more panic. And I think it was a little bit lucky for us that we don't speak Spanish, because we didn't hear a lot of what the staff and everyone was saying.
It was kind of... we couldn't understand what was going on. But yeah, it was... I had a massive panic attack. And obviously having anxiety and being in a situation like that, it's awful. But it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. It was like a lot of the time, because obviously my little brother was there and he was 5 at the time maybe, so I think a lot of like the role that me and my sister took on was just keeping him occupied, and like we were literally just sat there on an iPad, like playing games and just trying to distract him from like the chaos that was going on. Like trying to keep him calm and trying to like distract him, because he knew something was wrong, and he started getting a bit upset, but once people had started kind of backing off a bit and realising, okay, we're safer up here, then he managed to calm down, and we were just kind of sat on the iPad with him. But yeah.
I think we were quite lucky, really, in a sense, because, well, we were quite unlucky because we'd actually only gone to Barcelona for the day. Our hotel was a good hour-and-a-half coach ride away, so yeah, we were kind of unlucky that we had, gone that day. Very poor timing, but it happened towards the end of the holiday and we'd had nothing else planned. I think we only had like 2 days left, so for a lot of that we could just sit and chill. We were quite shaken up. Well, my brother wasn't too fazed, but me, my stepmom, my sister and my dad especially, we were all quite shaken up. But we were lucky because we weren't in the middle of Barcelona. We weren't, being constantly reminded of it, apart from people in the hotel talking about it. But yeah, they did put more security in the hotel. I think a lot of hotels did, even though we were quite far out, so obviously that was a bit of a reminder, but I think at that point we were just more appreciative of the fact that we were safe. And because my brother wasn't too fazed by it, he was still on holiday, so we put a lot of our attention into him, because obviously it was his last 2 days of his holiday, so yeah, we kind of used him a little bit to put our attention into.
I think the extra security made us more nervous, because it was just like the reminder of it. And I think if we'd have come back and everything had been as it was before, then we'd have been like, oh, it's okay. But just having them there, it was like, it's a reminder, and knowing that everything isn't normal. Because most of the time they've not been there, so yeah, definitely a reminder.
I don't think we did anything, but I didn't do anything that I regret, or kind of looking back on, I'm kind of like, oh, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done that. I think it's kind of like survivor's guilt kind of thing, where it's like, oh, you know, if I'd been down there instead of someone else sort of thing. But yeah, I think it was really just convenient timing with what happened. So no, I wouldn't change anything besides not being there in the first place.
If they are in a familiar area where they go to all the time and suddenly see somebody strange, people hanging around and taking photographs, recording events in an area where you think terrorists wouldn't operate, if you see people standing outside where you work taking selfies of themselves, why would they be taking selfies of themselves there? It's more likely that they're probably trying to record or take a picture of the entrance of the building or complex to see what the security procedures might be. There's certain countries that have a severe security risk attached to them for areas such as terrorism, organised crime or espionage. Our advice is, from a military point of view, if they're going to be travelling to those countries, there's a list of 8 or 9 countries, they come and visit us first and we give them tailored security advice. This isn't available to civilians. Our advice is to go to the Foreign and Commonwealth website, have a look at the country you intend to go to. The government regularly update the safety advice of what areas you should go into, where organised crime or high rates where potential threats may come from. Visit this website and have a look where you're going, and also familiarise yourself with the emergency number of that country. Run, hide, tell is a good process to follow. But you've got to get through the initial shock that there could be a terrorist attack being carried out, that initial panic that may grip you, that thought of fight or flight. If you're confronted with the terrorist directly in front of you, you might have to fight your way out. If you're aware that the terrorist attack is being carried out in the building, wherever you are, the advice first of all is run. Escape if you can. Always consider the safest option is where your knowledge of the building and the complex comes into play. Is there a safe route that can get you out? If by getting out would you put yourself in danger from the terrorists who might still be outside the building? If you don't think you can get out of there, then we get to the point of hide. It's better to hide than confront. Now remember to always put your phone on silent, because it's quite possible that the terrorists are going to be looking for you if they have known you've run away. Try and find cover from gunfire. Try to find something solid walls, something metal that's going to protect you from getting shot. If you can see the attacker, they can probably see you. Be aware of your exits so that you try not to get trapped somewhere. Be as quiet as possible, and if you can, lock or barricade yourself in. Also, move away from any doors and windows. Now, once you've done those 2 principles, you've either been able to run or you can't run, so you've decided to hide. Then you need to tell someone. Your call to 999, tell the police, that's the first thing they need to know. Let the police know exactly where you are. They might ask you a series of questions, for example, directions, how many attackers there were, what clothing they were wearing, what weapons were they possibly carrying. They may ask if you know of any casualties, where the entrances and exits are, the type of building that you're in. Your local knowledge of where you're working comes into play here. Then say, if you can't speak, just make a noise or listen to the instructions given to you by police. They will understand that you're trying to hide, so they might just direct you and not expect you to reply to them. They might just even ask you to tap your phone with a fingernail or something, just to acknowledge the fact that you've heard them. If you're injured, you're relying on everybody else to follow that same principle, so that the emergency services can get in and negate the incident to treat you as soon as possible. At the end of the day, you're dealing with ruthless people who don't care about you. The reason you've been attacked is to kill or injure people. Look out for what we call hostile reconnaissance, whereby if there's any major terrorist attacks planned, they can't just pitch up on the day and do it. They've got to plan it. They've got to put in a lot of thought into it, They'll be sending people to carry out reconnaissance of an organisation building complex, so they'll know that their plan will work. If you think back to the 7/7 bombers, where they went to London, blew up the underground stations and the double-decker bus. They were caught on CCTV a month before at Luton railway station, wearing the same clothing and the same rucksacks on their back that they used to carry out the attack. We try and encourage people that if you see anything suspicious, report it immediately. Because, as we say, we'd rather come out 100 times and it be a false alarm than not come out to the one time that something actually might happen. Now, most 16 to 18-year-olds don't watch the news. Most aren't aware of what's going on in mainstream life. So if people could be subject to an education and awareness program as a reminder of the dangers that they are faced with, it would be good. If schools, colleges and universities brought somebody in along a similar vein to myself to speak about the dangers and consequences of a terrorist attack, that might be very beneficial. It's very hard to target younger people because they almost think they're immortal and it won't happen to them. It will happen to someone else, somewhere else. The biggest threat out of terrorism is complacency. That's what let most of us down. Terrorists don't look like terrorists. They can be anybody. They come in all different shapes and sizes. Now, our main threat at the moment is ISIS and jihadist terrorists. Many Westerners, many British-looking people become radicalised and blend in. Organisations target young people and flood them with propaganda. They'll also target more vulnerable groups of people, people from communities that get overlooked. They have no adult supervision on a constant basis, and they're very, very easy to grasp, drawing them into that type of life and to radicalise. Most of the terrorists that have survived, that the police have been able to interview, have all said that someone in their family close to them knew what they were going to do. We encourage people that if you do see a change in someone's behaviour, demeanour, routine, talking about odd things, doing strange things, then report it, because it could be that they're going down a path of radicalisation. If we can jump in and grab them at that point before they deteriorate into carrying out an attack, that's the ideal situation.